Welcome everyone to Pavilion. This is Eddie, and this is our Arsenal versus Crystal Palace preview after a clutch game against Everton, and that's what I am going to say, because when I watched that game again, I thought it didn't feel as bad as it felt in the moment. I think there was a lot of nerves as we were watching the game, but Arsenal were defensively very strong. This reminded me of that game against Manchester United at the start of the season, and we remember, how people felt about that performance, but that laid the foundation for a solid defensive performance going forward. So I'm hoping for more of the same, from that Everton game. But today we're going to be talking about Arsenal versus Crystal Palace at the Emirates. And this game is going to be very, very interesting. And look, there are certain games that feel louder than ever, not because of the opposition, not because of the stakes, but because of what could go wrong if you misjudge them. And Arsenal fans know this one. Right, midweek cup, rotation expected, and the opponent coming off a bad loss. And the home crowd are expecting, a lot from Arsenal. And Crystal Palace historically are very good at hanging around long enough to make things uncomfortable. So the real question is, will Arsenal win? That is the real question. And I'm going to break that down in this preview. I'm going to look at, what are Crystal Palace strengths, how they can be exploited, what they might want to do to Arsenal in this game, and what Arsenal will need to do, and more importantly, the decisions that Mr. Arteta would need to make going into this game. So let's get into it. Okay, so guys, let's just think back at cup games that Arsenal have had over the last decade, especially the ones where we've gone out from. I'm not talking about like semi-finals, or finals. I'm talking about those early round, exits where, there've been rotation, tempo has dropped, and rhythm has not been there. And those games were not necessarily lost by talent. We usually lost by a bit of momentum, the team not really gelling together, Arsenal just playing out of character. And I think that this quarterfinal is going to be one that raises those kind of questions, because I think that rotation is absolutely crucial in this game. With the December congestion, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were making this analysis of the Arsenal games that they've got from now till the end of January. And Arsenal are playing 10 games. That includes the Champions League game, FA Cup game, this game, as well. So when I started talking about what Arsenal would need to win the title, and do check out that video, because it really breaks down on what the points total is and the teams that Arsenal cannot afford to lose to in order to win this title, that is completely independent of what Man City do. But we've got a December congestion. We've got key players that are returning. We've got the likes of Gabriel Jesus. Havertz, I understand, is not far behind. Gabriel is also very, very close to returning to the squad. I think that games like this are the opportunity for us not to overload a lot of our players. We're talking about the Saka, we're talking about the Declan Rice. So I think that this game is going to be a test of our process. It's going to be a test of Mikel Arteta trusting his team, which is a criticism that we've levied against him, over the years, where he does not trust his squad enough for him to play them in games that really matter. I think this is going to be the test. So, if Arsenal can win this game, without emotional, imbalance or it being emotional. I think that this could be building into something really, really good. Okay, so let's just look at Crystal Palace, right? As we always do, in our preview, we look at the opposition and we look at, what they're good at. So when I was researching Crystal Palace, for this game, you look at Palace and you look at their numbers, and on the surface, right, the Palace are coming into this game after a heavy defeat, 4-1 loss. They've had a patchy recent form, and especially in the Europe where they made a gamble and it backfired in their last game against the Finnish team that ended up 2-2. They had to bring all their heavyweights onto the field, but by then the damage was done and they were only able to salvage a draw, which meant that they couldn't qualify in the top 8. And you could say that that gamble might leave this team coming in with doubts or questions about their confidence. But if you step away from the results and look underneath, something doesn't line up when you look at Crystal Palace. So the Crystal Palace XG profile in the Premier League for this season, the expected goals is 26.5 and the actual goals is 20. Expected goals against is 18.5 and they've got an XG difference of +7. Now what that really means is that teams with positive XG difference are not bad teams. It just means that they're not taking advantage of all the chances that they have. And I guess you can probably argue that if you're not taking your chances, then you're probably not a really, really good team. But I could make the argument that you are making those chances. It's one of those things people always say about, strikers that, are going through a tough run of form, and people say, well, as long as he just keeps getting the chances, eventually, one will go in and then the floodgates will open. And so that makes Crystal Palace a very, very dangerous team. It makes, Crystal Palace, a team that you cannot take lightly. They're not toothless, they're just wasteful. And I think wasteful teams can suddenly click in a random moment. And I think that's something that we have to be aware of. Now, how Palace will actually try to win this game. They don't dominate matches, pretty much. They don't suffocate opponents. They survive. They get bodies forward. They win second balls and they rely on moments. So if you look at where their goals come from, their top goal scorers, obviously Philip Mateta, and then you've got Ismail Assar, Daniel Muniz, and you've got Eddie Nketiah, and everyone knows how I love Eddie Nketiah. I hope he doesn't come to bite us because I expect him to play in this game. So their goals are spread around, which is good from a Crystal Palace point of view. And for an Arsenal perspective, the real danger here is if Arsenal allows broken play phases, if transitions start stacking for Crystal Palace, if second balls are on control, that inefficiency, can disappear, right? And so Palace are going to feed on disorder. We've already played Palace this season at the Emirates, and we know how difficult that game was. I expect more of the same in this game. Palace are not going to come to the Emirates and lie down. I expect a tougher, performance from Palace because they've now got this, run of games that everything could be slipping, right? So I think, Glasner, who's a very good coach, is going to definitely want to make amends for the result in the weekend. From an Arsenal perspective, this game is really about Mikel Arteta. So I'm looking at Mikel Arteta here to actually get Arsenal over the line. And what I mean by that is that Mikel Arteta is going to have to trust his team. Rotation in this game is absolutely going to be key. And I think that, normally when you think about cup games, rotation might scare people. But I think that bravery is going to be required by Mikel Arteta to drop certain players for this game. Now, for me, the 11 that makes sense is, Kepa in goal. Kepa has got to come in and start this game. I don't want to see Raya in this game for any reason whatsoever. And I think it's also important to rotate in the back line as well. I want Louis Kelly, playing this game on the left-hand side. There is no reason for us to be starting Calafiori in this game, no reason whatsoever. I do appreciate that in the back of the defense, we've got some decisions to make with White being out, Mosquera not back. So I would actually pair William Saliba with one of the younger players, right? I think, this is a kind of game that, you can do that. And then on the right-hand side, unfortunately, Uran Timber has got to play. I just don't see anyone that can step in for Uran Timber right now. So he has to play. But again, I think this is a game that I wouldn't, want him to exert too much. And then in the midfield, I don't want to see Zubimendi in this game, and I don't want to see Rice. I think you start this game with Christian Norgard and Merino in that middle of the pack. I mean, there's an argument that you could potentially put Norgard in the defense. He's played that position before against Club Brugge, and he did reasonably well. So maybe he goes into that defense with Saliba, right? So, and then you have Merino potentially playing as a 6, and also you have Waneri coming to the team. The boy needs a game, and I think this is a game that he plays. I don't want to see Odegaard in this game, so Eze has to come in. And then on the left-hand side, Martinelli, on the right-hand side, Noni Madueke. And this is an opportunity to play Gabriel Jesus up front. I think that, this is the one where you give him, the start of a game. And let's see, what Gabriel Jesus is capable of doing. Gyökeres does not need to start this game. I think the bigger game for us is Brighton. But this game is important. It's a cup game. It's one that keeps momentum. We cannot afford to lose this game. So I think Mikel Arteta should trust this team. And then, we don't just need to overpower Palace. I think we just need to starve them. And I think, Merino and Norgard, can recycle possession. Norgard is very experienced, and we know what Merino can do, as well. And maybe this is another game where we score from set pieces. You score set piece goals and you actually put things to bed. Now, every Palace game, has a pattern. And for me, this is where this game will turn, right? Palace, they hold their shape. They survive the early phases and then they wait for chaos. So the key moments are going to be simple for Arsenal. The first sustained Arsenal spell in this game, we've got to take advantage of it. The first Palace transition, we've got to defend. And then the first goal. The first goal in this game is going to be absolutely key, because if Palace, struggle badly, once we get that first goal, I think that's absolutely going to be key. And if you look at their XG, it drops sharply after they've conceded the first goal. And so I think it's going to be key for Arsenal to do this. Make sure that we score the first goal, and then we can start looking at, a relatively good performance. Now, a good performance from an Arsenal perspective, it's not, we don't have to go ahead and smash, Crystal Palace or anything. It's about territory. It's about repetition, calm defending, and not having any momentum swings. I know it's a cup game, but we need to walk off, this game not feeling rushed at all, and then that will be job done. In terms of my prediction, I want a controlled game. I want it to be measured, and I want it to be decided, by, good structure, but also being decisive in the final third. I'm going to go with a 2-0 victory for Arsenal in this game. And like I said, the game against Everton was deja vu from the Man United game at the start of the season, and we can follow that with a few clean sheets. And I think we do that in this game, because it's in cup games, just expose who you really are, and it's if Arsenal handle this properly, then it will be another step towards something that could be huge. You know, Manchester City have done their job in this competition, and that is giving them confidence going forward. Arsenal needs to do exactly the same thing. So, guys, let me know your thoughts, and like I always say, you know, hit that like and subscribe button across the channel. And you know, I do appreciate all of you that watch this. But let me know in your comments who starts, who needs lots of minutes, what Arsenal will need to do in order to win this game. And does Mikel Arteta trust his team? I think this is what this game is all about, showing who he has trust in the Arsenal squad. I'm away from home, obviously. As you can see, the environments are different, and I just wanted to come in and drop this. But I would be looking at our reaction from this game, win, lose, or draw. There is a chance that I might be at the Emirates, you know, for this game. Though I come back into the country, you know, on the same day as the game. So we'll see how logistics go. But until then, guys, don't forget to check out my other channel. And don't forget to check out the other videos that I've made on this, what Arsenal will need to do to win the title, but also look at the post reaction on Everton versus Arsenal. And I'll see you guys at the next one.